Hello friends, and welcome once again to the amazing world of English literature. My name is Amit. I want you to imagine a garden, but not just any garden. This one is in Bengal, India, in the 1870s. The poet describing it has lived in France and England. She has read Milton's Paradise so many times that she knows the book by heart. She speaks Bengali, English, French, and is learning Sanskrit. She is only 20 years old. Now open your eyes. The poem we are exploring today was written by a young woman named Toru Dutt, and it's about her family's garden in Calcutta. But this poem is much more than a description of plants and trees. It's a meeting point of cultures. It's a mediation on beauty that almost hurts, and it is a glimpse into the mind of one of the most extraordinary poets probably you've never heard of. So today we are stepping into Toru Dutt's garden. Let's experience the poem. We'll read The Sea of Foliage or Bogmari for you. Listen to the sounds, listen to the colors, let the garden grow in your imagination. Here's the poem. A sea of foliage girds our garden round, but not a sea of dull, unvaried green. Sharp contrasts of all colors here are seen. The light green, graceful tamarinds abound. Amid the mango clumps of green profound, and palms arise like pillars grey between. And over the quiet pools the samals lean, red, and startling like a trumpet's sound. But nothing can be lovelier than the ranges of bamboos to the eastward, when the moon looks through their gaps and the white lotus changes into a cup of silver. One might swoon drunken with beauty then, or gaze and gaze on a primeval Eden in a maze. Did you feel that final moment? One might swoon drunken with beauty. This is a poet for whom beauty is overwhelming, almost too much to bear. Let's find out more about the poem. So let's look at the poem closely. This poem is a sonnet. A sonnet is a 14-line poem which is divided into an octet and a sestet. Octet means 8 lines, 4 and 4, and then 6 lines. The second half, the 6 lines, are antithesis of the first half. They say something different from the first 8 lines. So let us look closely at each line. A sea of foliage girds our garden round. So to gird is like to wear a belt. And look at the expression sea of foliage. Foliage is leaves, the greenery. And she says a sea of foliage. So the leaves that you have, the greenery, is like the ocean, and it's girding our garden round. So the whole garden looks green from above. But not a sea of dull, unvaried green. Sharp contrasts of all colors here are seen. But the sea of garden is not like the ocean, which is dull and monotonous, where you see water endlessly of the same color. Here you have green of different colors, different contrasts. There's light green, there's dark green, and she goes on to explain it. The light green graceful tamarinds abound, and the mango clumps of green profound. So you can almost see the images. Tamarind trees, what is called imli in Hindi, and the mango clumps, the mangoes hanging from branches. And palms arise, the palm trees which are very tall, like pillars grey in between. So in between this ocean of green, palm trees stand like pillars. And she also mentions the nuance. Palm trees are not green, they are grey, the leaves are green. And over the quiet pools, the samals lean. And there is a pond in the garden as well, or a set of ponds. The samals lean. Samal is a red flower that flowers in the spring, which you can see in most places in India. And she goes on to describe the samals thus: red, and startling like a trumpet's sound. So she's saying that there is a disruption because of the Semals. In all that greenery, there's this beautiful red that blasts, almost like a trumpet sound. So see here how the sense of sight has been mixed with the sense of sound. This is called synesthesia, where till now we have seen different kinds of trees, tamarind, mango, palm, and in between all this green is red. It's like on a quiet night somebody blows the trumpet. And then there's a break. These were the first 8 lines. Then she goes on to say, but nothing can be lovelier than the ranges of bamboos to the eastward when the moon looks through their gaps and the white lotus changes into a cup of silver. So what can't be lovelier? Here the poem changes its tone. Till now we have seen the day. Now it's the night. At the night, if you go into a bamboo garden, all the tall bamboo trees standing, and see the moon through that gap, nothing can be lovelier than that, she says. It's vivid imagery. And the white lotus changes into a cup of silver. And the white lotus in the pools, the ponds that were mentioned earlier, they look like cups of silver under the moonlight. And what does the poet say in the effect of it? One might swoon drunken with beauty then, or gaze and gaze on a primeval Eden in a maze. So the sight is so beautiful that you get intoxicated, you get drunk with that beauty. And it's so beautiful, sometimes you see a sight so beautiful, the moon or the ocean or the flowers, that you just keep looking at it. Notice the repetition, gaze and gaze on a primeval Eden. Eden is the garden mentioned in Bible in which Adam and Eve used to live, and primeval is an ancient time of which we do not know. So she's saying that the beauty is so overpowering that it seems to come from some really ancient time and leaves us completely amazed. Also look at how the word amaze has been used. Generally amaze is used as a verb, I am amazed, or as an adjective, this is an amazing day. But to use it as a noun is a poetic license that Toru Dutt has used over here. And that word comes from maze. Maze is a labyrinth. Labyrinth is called bhool bhulaiya in Hindi, a maze of paths through which you can't find your way out. So that makes the word a maze, that you cannot get out. You're transfixed. You're so besotted, so captured by the moment, captured by a scenery or an event so incredible that you call it amazing. So friends, what do you think? Isn't it an amazing sonnet? Toru Dutt was born in Calcutta in 1856 to a distinguished Bengali family. When she was 6, her family converted to Christianity, a decision that made them outcasts in their own community. When Toru was 13, her brother Abju died. Grief would become a companion. Then something remarkable happened. Her father, determined to give his daughters the best education, took the family to Europe. Toru and her sister Aru were amongst the first Bengali women to travel abroad by sea. They lived in France and then in England. Toru attended lectures for women at Cambridge at a time when women could not even enroll as students. She fell in love with French poetry. She learned to write English with precision and with power. When the family returned to India in 1873, Toru was 17. She found herself caught between worlds. Too Europeanized for traditional Bengali society and too Indian to be European. I have not been to one dinner party since we left Europe, she wrote to a friend. But instead of feeling defeated, she turned inward. She studied Sanskrit with her father. She listened to her mother's stories from the Mahabharata and Ramayana, and she began to write. In 1876, she published A Sheaf Gleaned in French Fields, translations of French poetry into English. She was just 20 years old. A year later, on August 30, 1877, she died of tuberculosis. She was 21. Edmund Gosse, the famous critic, wrote of her, "She brought with her from Europe a store of knowledge that would have sufficed to make an English or French girl seem learned, but which in her case was simply miraculous. A poet who lived 21 years, who wrote in 3 languages, who died before her genius was fully recognized. That's the voice we are hearing in this garden. Now let us talk about the themes in this poem. Let's walk through Torudutt's garden and see what grows there. First, the celebration of diversity. The poem opens with a powerful image. A sea of foliage girds our garden round, but not a sea of dull, unvaried green. Think about it. The sea might be vast, but it's monotonous. Whereas this garden, it's alive with contrast. Light green tamarinds, deep green mango clumps, grey palms, and then explosions of red from samel flowers, startling like a trumpet sound. Torudutt is celebrating variety, difference. The way different colors and textures create something more beautiful than uniformity. Given her own life, moving between cultures, languages, traditions, this feels deeply personal. The garden is a metaphor for the world she inhabited. Not a single dull green, but a riot of beautiful colors and contrasts. The second theme, the transformative power of light. Notice how the poem shifts in the final 6 lines. We move from daylight to moonlight and everything changes. The white lotus changes into a cup of silver. The same flower seen differently. Ordinary things become magical when light touches them differently. Torudutt is teaching us to pay attention, to see how the world transforms at different times from different angles. The third theme, beauty as overwhelming. This is my favorite part. One might swoon, drunken with beauty then, or gaze and gaze. Beauty here isn't mild or polite, it's intoxicating. It's something that makes you dizzy, that you can't look away from. That isn't a casual appreciation of a nice garden. This is someone who feels beauty so deeply, it almost knocks her over. Given that Toru knew she was dying, tuberculosis was slowly taking her, perhaps beauty felt more precious, more urgent. When you know your time is short, you really look carefully. Compare her situation with that of John Keats, who also died at the age of 23 and produced brilliant poetry before he died. The fourth theme, a primeval Eden. Finally, she compares this garden to primeval Eden. Primeval means from a forgotten ancient period. And Eden is a garden where Adam and Eve lived in the Bible. This is fascinating. Torudutt was raised on Milton's Paradise Lost, but she was also Indian, raised on Sanskrit texts and Hindu mythology. In her garden, she finds a paradise that belongs to both traditions. Eden and the gardens of ancient India meet in one place. Let's look at some of the poetic devices now used in this poem. Like already mentioned, it is the sonnet form. This is a Petrarchan sonnet, also called the Italian sonnet, 14 lines with a clear turn or volta after the 8th line. The first 8 lines, octave, describe the garden in daylight, full of color and contrast. The last 6 lines, sestet, shift to moonlight, quieter, more magical. The form itself mirrors the transformation that Toru describes. Next, important is imagery and synesthesia. Torudutt just doesn't paint pictures, she mixes senses. The red semel flowers are startling like a trumpet sound. That is synesthesia, mixing of sight and sound. The red is so vivid, so sudden, it feels like a loud noise. Another figure of speech is simile. Palms arise like pillars grey between. This comparison does 2 things. It gives the palms strength and structure, pillars, and it connects nature to human architecture. The garden is not wild chaos. It has dignity, order, grandeur. Another figure of speech is personification. The seamer leans over the pools as if bending down to look at themselves, almost like we look at ourselves in the mirror. The moon looks through the bamboo gaps as if peeking like a human being. The garden is alive, aware, participating in its own beauty. Another interesting feature in this poem is repetition. Red, red, and startling. The repetition of red makes us stop, pay attention, and see the color twice as intensely. Now, a few words that we must know that have come in this poem. Girds. To surround, to encircle. The foliage wraps around the garden like a belt. Profound. Deep. Here it means a deep, rich shade of green. Semals, also spelled semel or silk cotton tree, a native Indian tree with brilliant red flowers. Swoon. To faint from intense emotion. The speaker is so overcome by beauty that she might literally faint. Amaze. Amazement, wonder. Torudat ends with this word, the state of being completely astonished. And now, learners, here are some activities for you. The first activity. In small groups, draw a simple map of the garden Torudat describes. Label each element. Tamarinds, mango clumps, palms, semals, pools, bamboos, lotus. For each one, add the sensory details the poem gives. Colors, sounds, textures, even emotions. Then, present. What part of garden would you most want to visit? The next activity. Torudat uses contrast, the sudden red against all that green. Think of a moment in your own life when something ordinary suddenly became striking. A sunset, a face, a street you've walked 100 times. Write a short paragraph describing that moment using at least one comparison, simile, and one sensory mix, synesthesia. So, Torudat died before she could write more, but in this one sonnet, she has left us a garden we can visit anytime. A garden of contrasts, a garden where red flowers shout like trumpets and white lotus flowers turn to silver in the moon. A garden where a young woman caught between the worlds found a way to make them bloom altogether. The next time you're outside, look closely. What do you see that might be startling? What might change if the light shifted? And what beauty might be right in front of you, waiting to make you swoon? Thank you very much for participating in the garden with me. Until next time with a new poem, new story. Namaskar.